Morning, everyone. Appreciate you coming to hang out with me on the Saturday morning. And if not, if you can't make it, obviously we're going to have everything posted on YouTube. I'm still getting my coffee, still waking up a bit. But I want to spend a little time this morning jumping back into what we were working on last Wednesday. So just a deep dive into my bug bounty hunting process. So I tell you what, we don't even really need to spend too much talking. Go ahead and share my screen out here. I'll take a minute to catch up, didn't it? All right, so we should have everything exactly where we left off last Wednesday. So the last thing that we were looking at was how does it handle special characters, and we saw that it's a PHP application. And it does tend to break when you give it special characters. So the next logical step for that is to see if we can trigger any error messages that will give us some insight into what's happening on the server side. And the big thing that I'm trying to find here right now that I haven't been able to find is what kind of database it's using, because that's going to give me a lot of insight into how I can potentially try to approach that to exfiltrate data from it. But we're also looking at, because it's PHP, is it written with some type of framework or something like Laravel, where maybe there's a debug option that it's enabled that we can use. PHP will also probably be looking for like PHP info, login pages, if there's something like that. So obviously there's some quirks to the technology stack. But yeah, I mean, we've been going through all these different things. For anybody who doesn't remember what we did last week, again, it's a PHP application. It appears to be running in Google Cloud. We got some basic functionality. We've got a user account that we can log into, a little bit that we can play with there, but not a lot of granularity for the roles. We have these definition objects, which obviously, if anybody's not familiar with Urban Dictionary, that's the main purpose of it, that it's serving the viewer these different definitions of words that are colloquial, basically words that or sayings that are more of a slang term is the purpose of the site there. We did find that it has a cookie to establish session. It looks like there's some data that's stored in there. XML, we're looking into the XML. There seems to be some pointers that are showing to me that we can play with some XML entity injection, so we're going to look at that at some point. But really what we're doing is we're getting the lay of the land. We're trying to understand as much as we can about the application. As we do that, we're starting to build out this picture of what the application is, and we'll start to find things that we can potentially manipulate. So, and again, we've already found several things like that. If I bring back up Burp Suite here, one of the main endpoints that I remember from our last session was this here. This define, it has a lot of variability when you send it different characters. And I remember specifically this dash and dot together for this term does have some strange behavior to it that made us think that, there you go, like we can get a 500 error. Now, obviously not a lot of verbose error messaging to it, but that's strange. It's a strange combination of characters to do that. You would think maybe things like emojis or null bytes or there's typical stuff that would more commonly cause that, but I haven't seen that character string specifically. Now that may be a PHP thing, and that's something that we'll look up, but that tells me something. Actually, let me jump in the voice chat here in case anybody wants to join. Well, I don't know how many people were awake this early on a Saturday and ready to dig into this, which I totally understand. So anyway, so let's come over to number 9. This is where we left off. And I think we sent a few special characters. Let's go ahead and move on to number 10, because we're going to continue to do the same thing here. We just kind of got the idea that it does seem like it breaks. It seems like we can manipulate the application with these strange characters. So let's see if we can play with that a little bit more. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring this burp over here, and we'll find a couple other input vectors to see if we can play around with. These are all the terms. Now, interesting that is that a space? That is a space that's not being URL encoded. So again, this term input is very different from what I'm used to seeing. So I'm still focusing in on that. Let's see. We've got this here. Let me drop off. Just get logged in real quick. There we go. Let me go back to my main screen. Okay, let's find let's play with this. Okay, so right now I'm Arson. Let's see how this input handles it. Because we know that we can break the term endpoint, the one that we were looking at before, but we can see there's not verbose error messaging that's coming back. So I'm hoping to find something that gives us a little more insight compared to what we're having here. Okay, so here is handle.save.php. Let's send that one to the repeater. This looks like one that we can play around with. Ooh, I like this user's endpoint to a get to a user's endpoint, so we can possibly see if we can do a post, a put, change the HTTP verbs, which is coming up here pretty soon. So let's grab that one. And that's about it. Okay, and then we can see it being read right there. So let's come play with these. So what happens if we just send this again? We get a redirect. Doesn't seem like it minds. This UTF parameter here is very strange. I wonder why it would be sending those 3 encoded values as part of that. And then this token here, where's this token coming from? Is it written into the PHP itself? Is it part of the, let's go back to the change your handle. Oh, still got the intercept on. Let's just view page source for right now. We've got some inline JavaScript here. So again, we're seeing a lot of opportunities to potentially get some DOM-based vulnerabilities, DOM-based cross-site scripting, prototype pollution. Potentially, we'll want to look into the CSRF and see if we can potentially, change somebody's handle or something, have somebody add a definition, obviously finding impact in a web application that just stores definitions of slang terms might be a little bit more difficult, but I think we can do it. One of the ways that I can think right now to show impact on an application like this would be, can we make it look like somebody posted a definition that's unsavory, that's not, imagine if somebody wanted to hurt someone else's reputation and they knew that they commonly posted here. Well, maybe they would post something and the definition would have very derogatory things towards a minority group or anything. Obviously, it'd be a terrible thing to do, but that's the type of stuff that an attacker could do if they wanted to weaponize these types of things, and that's how we can show impact. For something like this, it'd be very easy for them to come back like, yeah, well, there's it's not really having a lot of impact. Well, if it can potentially ruin somebody's life and they didn't say these terrible things and somebody else trying to make it look like it, that's a big impact for the users, and certainly the owners of the application would care about that. So that's where my mind is going as far as how to build impact here. Unless we can just completely take over something, maybe we can leverage something in the store, but we'll have to see as we get a little bit closer. All right, so let's see, we've got this endpoint here. It seems like it's taken anything. Oh yeah, I wanted to see where is this built into it? It is, or at least there's a reference there. Oh, and then it's just a hidden value. Okay. So this, I would assume, would be the CSRF token, and then it's just base64 encoded. If so, I'll tell you what, let's refresh and let's just see if that changes. That's going to be a test we'll have to do in a bit. View page source again. And it should be the second one. Is there? There's only one this time. Oh, because that would be why. So we got to go back here to change our handle. Okay. So is the CSRF token changing? It is. Okay, so it looks like the CSRF token is being dynamically generated every time it comes. So that's going to make it much harder for us to get a CSRF attack, but that's okay. All right. So now let's see if we can break this endpoint. So a correct, oh, we've already broken it. What happened? Well, I didn't change anything. I wonder if just because the CSRF token is not valid anymore because we've reloaded the page again. So maybe reloading the page causes it to refresh that. I wonder if that's it. Let's test that. Okay, so view page source again. Again, I'm getting a little ahead of the testing here, but I'm super curious, and we got to do this in a few minutes anyway. So let's copy this base64. We'll take it up to decoder, paste it. Smart decode does not pick it up, so we will decode its base64. Oh. So they must be doing some other type of processing on this. I wonder if they're taking the hex and then using that. It's not it there. Okay, well, we can still do this test. We'll just have to resubmit the form and then grab it in here. So let's go to arson3, intercept this. Let's go ahead and hit save. We know we got to move through this one here. Okay, here we are. So here's our new CSRF token. How does that compare to what we have right now? So page source a little bit easier. Oops. Oh, so it's still sending the base64. Okay, so it doesn't matter. So it is probably just decoding it and grabbing that hash. That's fine. So we can just copy it directly over. All right, so that does make it much easier there. So let's see if we take this, copy it over, and we put it to this request. I'm hoping we'll get a 200 here. Something changed here. Did I accidentally delete the... I think the name of the thing there got changed. Hold on, let's copy this over. Maybe that's why we're getting it. Is that all that happened? Did I accidentally replace that? It is, okay. I don't have a clue how I did that. Must have been when I copied and pasted, but okay. Yeah, somebody who's watching at home or watching this video is going to be laughing their butt off. That's all right. All right, so then let's see. This is the old one. So I don't think these CSRF tokens are being invalidated. Let's come grab the new one. It doesn't seem like the CSRF token's really doing much of anything. Assuming that is what it is. But we do have to have, I mean, it's acting just like a CSRF token. It's a hidden input. Yeah, it doesn't seem to care. As long as you have a valid CSRF token. I'll tell you what, let me do this. Let's log out and then log back in. We'll cut this off here just for a second. Log back in. All right, so we're back. And so theoretically, this CSRF token should not, under any circumstances, work anymore. We just logged out, logged back in, and yeah, it seems to be working just fine. All right, so I want to make a note of that. And that's going to be much further down here. So CSRF, we'll make this note on the CSRF token just when we come back to it and say, tokens do not appear to be invalidated when sent or when the user logs out. So very interesting. Very, very interesting. That's something that we can come back and use later. Essentially, the ones that I had down here, this is where we're going to get in a bit, but before I start looking for a lot of your common vulnerabilities like cross-site scripting and try to bypass authentication and all that type of stuff, I like to look for these 4 chaining bugs, and we'll get to this more in a bit, but open redirect, any reflected input, cross-site request forgery, so CSRF is what we were just testing there, and then seeing if you can change HTTP verbs and having a different effect. All of these are things that I'll use later to be able to build impact if I do find actual vulnerabilities. For example, a cross-site scripting, well, now I know that this CSRF token is not invalidated when the user logs out. So if I can grab a valid CSRF token as part of that cross-site scripting attack, now I can bypass that and do what's called a session routing attack. I've talked about that on several other streams. So that's the reason that I'm kind of dialing into that. So anyway, let's go back to where we were originally, because we still have a bit of ways before we get there, but definitely good to know. We're continuing to see a lot of misconfigurations that make me think that this is a great target to spend my time on, which is something I talked about a lot before. So now we're going to go through and see if we can break this and see if we can call some error messages. So emojis and the naughty list of strings here, this is two ways that I typically do it. Let's start with the sec list, the automated test there. So we'll come up to intruder. I don't need that anymore. I've talked about this before, but this just allows us to send several different payloads. And let's add one payload here. Sorry, I really don't want coffee this morning. Add another payload here. Let's not add a payload there yet. We'll add a payload here. So the reason that I'm choosing these three, but I don't want to test this actual handle value now, is because the handle value is stored. You know, that's what's actually going to be stored in the database and what's going to be coming back. I don't believe that any of these other values are being stored in the database. So I want to test, first of all, to see if I can manipulate the values that are being used to process the data, and then we're going to do a separate test on the actual data that's being stored itself. And that's something that I really like to do. If we have anything, you know, we're always looking at these endpoints. This is something that's going to come up here very soon. We're going to start looking at these endpoints and seeing if we can, again, manipulate their HTTP verbs. How does it, you know, handle that? So we're looking at what each page, what aspect of CRUD each page does. You know, so coming down here, once we get into the next section, once we go through the servers, what aspect of CRUD does, that will tell me potentially what's happening, that will tell me what the parameters being used for, and that will eventually tell me, well, if I have something that's being done as a GET, I can assume that that's most likely just reading the data, hopefully, if they've done it correctly, when we come down here, whereas, you know, can I change that to a post and start actually manipulating the data, do a create, update, delete, etc. So we're eventually starting to get to that point. First step here, let's just see if we can play with the actual mechanisms. So we've added each of those. We'll load this up. And once again, we'll just do our big list of naughty strings there, run the attack. And we're going to look for any major variations in the status and the content length and the amount of times it takes to come back. Oh, I got some things in the chat too. Oh, well, I got a bot in the chat first of all. Oh, what's up, J Money? I appreciate it, man. I'm glad. I'm glad it's helpful. Very, very glad. All right, we'll let this run for a second. Shouldn't take too long. In the meantime, always, I've been telling Portswigger, please make this default. I don't know why it wouldn't be. I think these are really valuable. And see, look. So we got a huge variation in the response time here. This is what we're looking for when we're doing this. Thank you. I'm glad it's helpful. Again, if you have any specific questions, let me know. I can dig into anything. So we're going to be looking for any variations. Let's start with the status code because that's the biggest pointer to me. Oh, the pro version of Burp. So I've had it, I think this is my 5th year that I've had a subscription. It's very, very helpful. The mistake that people make is they get it and they buy it for the scanning. You know, so they think, okay, well, they think that buying Burp Pro will give them an advantage. They'll go in, they'll run the scans, nobody else is paying, you know, and you're just going to find duplicates like that. Everybody else has the scanner. They have like a free version of the scanner and everything too. But things like Collaborator are huge. There's a lot of Pro extensions that are really, really valuable. So I definitely recommend Pro. I definitely do not recommend buying it just to start scanning and doing everything. I'm a big proponent of only investing money into something that's like a side hustle or career or anything that you've made doing it. So when I started, the goal that I gave myself was I have to earn enough money for the Burp Pro without it to be able to get to that. I'm not saying you have to do that, but it was certainly a really good motivator when I started, and it forced me to learn a lot of manual techniques that I probably wouldn't have otherwise. So something to think about, but yeah, I would say Burp Pro is a must for anybody who wants to really start digging into application security. All right, so we have a lot of 500 responses here. So 500, yep, server error. That's typically where I'd be looking for those verbose error messages. Where is our thing here? Where do we get to them? Okay, so anything special that pops out, we'll fill this out here. We're not getting a lot of information in the error messages right now. Let's see if anything's much different. All these 751s are probably going to be the same. Most of them are responding. Is there any pattern here as far as what we're testing? It looks like a lot of these 500s we're testing come on, don't do that to me. We're testing the UTF-8. Little trick here, auto scroll, and then, so if you want to check the response of everyone, we can do that. Now I can go down and see what the variations are. So a lot of these 500s actually, I think, are testing the CSRF token, which would make sense that we're seeing a 500 error coming back. So we're looking for patterns. We're looking for patterns. It does appear that if you send them garbage in the authenticity token, which I'm assuming is a CSRF token, you're getting a 500 error. None of these are valid. These are all the tests we ran on that input vector. I think that's what we're going to see. Come on. All right, let's scroll a little faster. All of these, okay, here's a change. And this is still, oh no, this one is not testing, this one is testing the commit variable here, or commit parameter. That's giving us a 500 as well. Is that a consistent? No, so, okay, all right. So we have commit save right here. So the commit, the server is expecting a capitalized string save for this commit value. And here it has a valid CSRF token, but we're still getting a 500 error with this value here. Okay, so just a bunch of strings. Is there any change to the response? No, these are all still the same one. So that's interesting. Something is causing that to break, and that break should give us some insight into potentially how this commit value is being used. I'm looking for what could be possibly causing it. I want to say the percent sign is the main difference here, and we can test that. Let's try this one first. So let's send this back to the repeater. Send this, should get a 500 error. We do. All right, so I'm going to leave everything else in here. We have a valid CSRF token. I'm just going to drop this percent. Or no, not that percent. It's going to be hard with URL encoding. Where's the real percent? I could do this in the decoder, but I want to be fancy, but I won't. Smart decode, take us back there, get rid of that, encode as URL. And it may just not like anything. It may just not like URL encoding. It's definitely a possibility. No? Okay, so a percent sign in this commit value breaks it. And we've seen things like that before. It doesn't like the percent sign. So is that because it's in PHP? Or is that because this is somehow being this is being passed over to like a system method or something to where the app is actually running something on the server itself, at which point we possibly have a command injection. So very interesting that percent sign. And the reason I'm thinking that is because of environmental variables. Environmental variables can be called and notated with surrounding them by percents. So if this is something that it's not validating, it's just directly dropping it down to run as a command line, like a bash script or something, then it could potentially be trying to call an environmental variable that doesn't exist, and that's what's giving the 500 error. So that's where my mind is going. Definitely interesting to see that. And again, we found that just by throwing a bunch of random stuff at it. It's what's called fuzzing, throwing a bunch of random stuff at this endpoint and seeing how it reacts and recognizing the patterns there. So let's come back to what we're looking at again, but we're gonna write that down. If you notice how tired I am, I'm just subconsciously holding my coffee just to try and get as much energy as I can. Okay, so percent seems to cause the app to break, and then in parentheses, just to be clear, we're going to copy the URL. Actually, I'll do post. That was clearly copying the curl. Copy the URL. There you go. That's typically how I do it, you know, whatever way that you want to remember it, but this just tells me it's a post request, and that's the parameter, and that was the original value that I can do it, that I can break it with a percent sign. So, all right, we're starting to figure things out. Anything without a valid CSRF token is going to cause it to get our 500 error, but also a percent in the commit parameter. So I'm now immediately thinking command injection going in there, or some other funky PHP stuff. I need to do a little bit of research on how the percent is used in PHP. Okay, so we can move past this. No major variations in the response time that I saw. This right here, that's not enough. These are milliseconds, by the way. So, you know, going from 71 to 106, very short amount of time, easily could just be a hold up in the server. All right, so 302 is, if you look over here, we see this was the first request. The first request does not change anything in the original request that was sent. So this is our control, our baseline. So if 302 is what we would expect to see, we're going to be looking for variations in the response length and in the response time. And I'm immediately seeing this one right here. This is, why in the world would this be happening? The value undef in the UTF-8 parameter is causing it to take 21 seconds. Remember, these are milliseconds, so this is 21 seconds to respond, and it's giving a different response. What is the different response? Is that a new... Let's send this to the repeater. Well, it's the same this time. So this could just be a hiccup. It's very possible that the server just couldn't handle that one. Although that's a huge gap. We'll see if there's anything else like it. We've got that in the repeater now, we can come back to it. I don't understand what the difference is in the response. Why is the other one so much larger? What is it? There's got to be an extra header or something, right? Like, we're only 4 characters longer, unless it's just in the cookie itself. I don't see any additional characters there. Maybe they are, though. It's really weird for it to take 21 seconds. Okay, let's move on from that. Not seeing a ton of other outliers here. Let's scroll a little faster. I'm looking at the length over here, still saying it at 12:08. I'm looking at the response times. Nothing else. Here's one that took a little longer, but the difference was not the same. Let's see if we can recreate that. This took... That's the same thing. So yeah, I guess hammering the endpoint a little bit is causing some blips from the server. Looks like about it though. See if we got anything that's not a 302. Okay, so the most interesting thing for me that came out of this is the fact that a percent sign in this commit value causes it to break, but nothing else causes it to break. That is very unique. It's not something that I would typically see. So again, we now have 2 endpoints that I'm very, very interested in. Let's discard this, and let's see if we can cause, let's grab some emojis. Emojis, Chinese characters, another one. So just very strange encoded characters that the server probably wouldn't expect to see are great things to throw at it. So let's see if it likes emojis. I think it does. I think we tried this last week and it was fine with it. I actually think that some of the definitions and everything have it. So they probably set it up to handle this, although they may not have it set up to handle on the commit. Converted it over to a question mark. That's funny. Yeah, it doesn't care about that. We can try it here as well for my handle. Let's see if it lets me store that. That becomes a 200. So typically we get a 302. Now we've got a 200. I'm going to show this response in the browser here. Oh, somebody's already using it. So apparently, yeah, it seems like it's very set up to handle encoded characters, at least emojis. Let's try, I think just Chinese characters should be fun. I don't think we need to get too specific and say we need like Mandarin or anything. Yeah, something like this would be good. Let's get something different though. This looks good. Let's see if I can change. Actually, we'll try the commit first. See how you like this. Doesn't mind that at all. See if it likes the handle. I wonder if, is this saying that somebody already has that one as well? And the question here is too, does somebody actually have that handle? Or is it just kicking it back and telling us that as an error? Let's see. Oh. Yeah, sure, why not? See how it likes that. Okay, so yeah, it doesn't care. It doesn't care. All right, so it seems to handle complex encoded characters pretty well, but more common characters are different. So again, the percent sign, it really doesn't seem to like the percent sign. Let's go back and set this to something that's more palatable. By the way, the save doesn't seem to care here. I think this can still just be arson. I can do that, send it. Redirection, show response in browser. Oh, there we go. So that'll be a little bit easier. All right. So let's come over and make a note of that here. Yeah. So this doesn't seem like it's going to be a good way to break the app. Percent is going to be one of the main ones. And now we have chase parameters to an array. So this is typically a way that I can try and break the app, especially in APIs. But the interesting thing with this one, and I talked about this before, is that if we look at some of these, they're actually already doing that. So that makes me think that there's some more opportunities for things like prototype pollution, etc. But let's just copy this over and show that on the request by design, and then I'm just going to grab these values here so I'll remember. Yeah, so we have the user handle there. Out of curiosity, because we have that, actually let's see how the other ones handle it first. Maybe there's just some, and maybe we can use the parameter naming scheme to identify parameters that are specifically sending something to the database. So maybe everything that has a user handle, this is something that's going to the database, everything else does not. So let's send it over. We're going to turn UTF-8 into an array. We'll turn all these in here and see how it handles it. Now it does break it again. We're not getting any information though. This does show how valuable the Error messages can be for an attacker. Like if this came back and said, you know, we can't handle that encoding, or in fact, let's see if the CSRF token is what's causing it. It is, okay. So that breaks the CSRF token. I wonder how it's being processed. Can I have it, maybe it's converting it into an array and then I can call the first index of it? No, you're not able to do that. What about maybe there's something before it? No, not working. Okay, so it does not like that being an array. Breaks when it's converted to an array. Let's see. Does this need the handlebug? Do we access any other parts of the user object? I wonder what else is in the user object. Let's just try doing this. Okay, so that does break it. We can fuzz using the RAF's word list to try and find something that'll give us something besides a 500. It's something we can do a little later. Let's see, because we're still just trying to break this. Let's see if we can convert this to JSON. I know oops, I tried to name it like my name. Okay, so how would we do this? I'm just going to bring you and send you to the decoder right now. So I have you. Don't need that. Get rid of anything that should not be a list. We're going to do this properly. All right, and I'll get this set up correctly in a bit. First of all, we'll grab our UTF-8 value here. And yes, I could definitely do this in a converter, and it'd probably take less time, but I think it's valuable to go through this. And also, I'm stubborn, and when I start to do something, I usually want to finish it the way I started it for no particular or measurable reason. So this one here, I'll try and send it like this first. Let's try and send it with the URL encoding and everything. Very curious to see how it handles this. Okay, now we've got our commit save. That's what it originally was. Okay, and let's make sure we have the correct ending. Every HTTP request should end. Nope, that's not it. Not it at all. There we go. There we go. Every HTTP request should end with 2 return carriages and line breaks. Okay, so it's getting a error. It should go away. Is everything done correctly? Comma, comma. Let's see if it's this. Maybe it doesn't need the URL encoding anymore. It's definitely possible that it just can't handle it. Okay, and then one more. Let's get rid of this, and we'll turn this into an object. Nope. So it doesn't look like it's designed to handle JSON data at all. But again, we're still not getting any good information there as to why it's breaking. Okay, I think that's good for right now. We've got a couple ideas of how to break it. We can keep looking as we're going, but now let's go ahead and move on to the actual features that are present in the application. So edit profile, we've seen this. We can change our handle, and that's really about it. We can claim different individual ones, but there's it's OAuth, so in order to change your password, it would have to be something that you're changing from Google or Facebook, whichever one that you used. That's really all that we can do. So, and this is me getting an idea of what types of attacks that I can do to possibly build impact. So if I'm going to affect the user account, it might almost be better to just try and read data, because maybe there's data leak from Google. Maybe we're pulling in too much information from Google and we can possibly access that. Email and messaging. There's no email and messaging that I have seen in this application. I have not seen any file uploads, I don't think. Let's look around and just make sure that you add any. You can link a GIF here. Oh, this makes me think about server-side request forgery too. This may be a good one to test for that, but I don't see anywhere to upload files. So let's not. Now the shopping, we do have this entirely different shopping application, and right now I'm considering this a completely separate app because it does seem to have a whole different tech stack. It's built on Shopify, which has its own bug bounty program. I think the methodology, the process to come and attack this is going to be completely different. So I'm actually going to put no for this, even though there is a shop, because I would come back and have a completely different approach. I would do this whole process that I'm doing again if I wanted to target this store piece of Urban Dictionary. So webhook. I'm just realizing this now. I'm pretty sure I meant to say WebSocket, and I've seen this so many times, and I don't think, well, now if WebSocket's there, I don't remember why I put that. I don't know. Anyway, let's see if it has a WebSocket anyway. I want to know. And best way to do that, you can come to the proxy and just look and see if there's any WebSocket history. There's no WebSocket history while I've been browsing in there, so I don't believe there's a WebSocket there. None. Flight or hotel booking, definitely not. Banking, definitely not. Okay, so, and just going through this process and asking me these questions gives me a really good idea of what my possibilities are. This is me starting to get an idea of what an attacker would do, how I can build impact, like I was talking about before. And the more of this functionality you have, the better it is for the attacker, the more opportunities that you have. So this is probably the first thing out of this process that I've seen that would make me think, I don't know if this is a great use of my time. Because even if we find something here, how impactful is it really going to be? Maybe I would switch over to the blog or the store or something, but I'm going to keep going down with this because there's at least enough here, especially that command injection, the possibility of server-side request forgery. Those types of vulnerabilities are something that's definitely worth the money, or worth the time, I guess. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take a short break here, refresh my coffee. I'll be back in just about 5 minutes. All right, got some fresh coffee. Should be good to go. All right, so again, not a ton of great stuff that we're finding here as far as building impact. That's my first real deterrent that I've seen, but let's go ahead and move on. Let's see if we can figure out, let's see if we can figure out how the user's object is being identified. So, and this is something to start looking for IDORs, for indirect object references that I mentioned before. So if we want to target that user object and try and attack it in some way, if we want to, again, change the handle, have them submit a definition that they didn't intend to submit, which I think is the greatest opportunity to show impact, then we need to, what's actually happening is when you send a request to make a change to that user object, it's got to have some type of identifier in that request that the user sends to link that request to the user. That's what we're going to be looking for in an indirect object reference. So if there's, let's say, an MD5 something that's being used, and the server takes that and says, okay, let's find the user object that's connected to this ID. It pulls that object back, and then it will add a definition for them or change their handle without their knowledge. Ideally, I can send a request and it will have a different user's ID in it, and then the application on the server side is not going to validate that I have access to that. So most likely what you're going to have is you're going to have a value in the session and then hopefully a value somewhere else. The correct way to do this would be to have that value in the session and then in some type of cookie or something, and then the cookie itself is going to be signed, so you're validating the integrity as well through that signature before you're even processing the data. That's how you can know that it hasn't been manipulated. So that would be a correct implementation of this. What I'm hoping is that they have a cookie that's not signed, or they're not even checking it, and the data is stored somewhere where I can control it, to where I can submit a different user's ID and the server will go, okay, I'm not even going to check if you should have access to that. I'm just going to go ahead and pull that user's object out. We're going to make the changes. We're going to go ahead and move forward. So that's the reason that we want to take a look at how the user is identified. What coffee am I drinking? So this is Blue Bottle from California. I actually had some fresh Blue Bottle sent to me out here. So this was roasted just a couple days ago. And it is fantastic. But there's a lot of great roasters down here in Texas. I just happened to be drinking a California one because I was lucky enough to get a hold of some fresh beans. I'm a big coffee guy. All right. So let's see if we can figure this out. And really, I think the best way to figure it out, because we're already changing the user's value here. Let's go back to before we jacked it up. Go way back before we jacked it up. What was the first one here? Okay, so here is the request to, oh yeah, what's up, Rob? Was that noted on the coffee? Yeah, it's good, man. Blue Bottle's solid. So this request is going and making a change to the user object. We know that. I know that I can change this to, let's move this out. I know I can change this to user 3, or I don't need to go there. Send that, and then if I refresh this, we see it change up there to user 3. So again, just like I said, sending in this request, there must be some value that the server is taking and connecting to the user object that's being modified, and that's what's being presented here. When this page loads, it's pulling that same user object we just modified out of the database, and it's showing us that change right there. Oh yeah, you can get some too? Yeah, I know it's early. Like I said, I've got a bunch of stuff around the house and everything I need to do this weekend, so I wanted to go ahead and get this done before I rolled out for the day. But yeah, I'm still trying to figure out. It may be a little early for people. There's certainly, oh, you can't you? I do that all the time. Appreciate that. Yeah, clearly. I don't know. These early morning streams are, I can tell that my mind is not as sharp as it normally is. I think I need to at least go for a run or do something before, because I'm not running on the amount of energy I normally have. In fairness, though, it's also been kind of a crazy week, but that's all right. Okay, so anyway, looking back at this request, like I was saying, this request here that is changing our handle, my handle, is doing exactly what we're looking for. So once again, what I did here, we can change it to arson4, send that through, and if we refresh, we can see that arson4 has been changed there. So yeah, just like I said, we send this request. On the server side, it is taking this value here. It's pulling my user object from the database. it is changing the handle name to this new value. It's storing it back in the database, and then when I reload this page, it is pulling that from the database and presenting it to me in a read. So this is a specific mechanism that we can start to manipulate. We have SQL injection or no SQL injection possibilities in the handle. But again, first we'll try and figure out how it's identifying me. It's not identifying me through here unless there's something in the authenticity token that we don't know about. So I'm going to start doing what's called trying to minimize or reduce this request. So I'm going to get rid of everything that the server side doesn't care about, where we can still recreate this functionality. And hopefully we can start dialing into what exactly it's using to identify my user object. So let's see. Get rid of just a couple cookies there that look like they're not valuable. That didn't have any impact. I'm guessing this is going to be our main one here. This user ID looks interesting. Now I can tell you this may see, you may see this and think, oh, automatically that's how it's doing it. You would be shocked at how many times there's just generic things here and it's more for tracking or it doesn't do anything. So I'm going to leave that one there for right now, but I don't know. We'll have to see. Also weird that they put an underscore here. I wonder if this is like a kind of hacky security thing, because most cookies that start with an underscore is like a tracking cookie. So maybe they think that there's automated systems that won't pick this up. I don't know, but that's actually good if that's the case. I'm gonna get rid of everything that has that value because that's not a very effective security control, and I love when I see security controls that are not effective but people think they are. Okay, so we're still not having any issues here. Let's make sure we can still affect it. Let's change this to a 5. Send that. We should have stored it in the database, and we're updating it here. Good. So we have not impacted that at all. Let's get rid of these CTO things. No impact. Again, let's make sure it's actually working, because the response time or the response is not always a source of truth. We're good there. Okay, so now we have this session, which, as I said in the last stream, this appears to have data stored in it. This looks like we have a base 64 value, and then we have, I said an MD5, but now that I'm looking at this, I'm pretty sure it's a SHA-1. Looks too long to be an MD5. But I'm actually thinking this is our identifier, and this is a red herring. But I don't know. Let's see if we can find out. So let's just get rid of this one here. I'll just cut it. And does this still work? It does still work. Okay, so it tells me that I may be on the right track. Let's change this, make sure it's actually working. We'll go 7, send, refresh. Okay, still working. So yeah, just like I said, that user ID is not impacting it. So this session appears to be the main one. Now, I assume if we just get rid of this completely, there's no way this will work. There's no way this will work. It's got to give us some type of an error, unless our user ID is stored in this authenticity token, because otherwise it's not stored anywhere else. So I would be shocked if this worked. And yeah, let's see just what happens out of curiosity, but I think it's just going to take us back to the main page, sign in page. Okay, sure. So exactly what we expected to see there. We'll go back one. So now let's see if it's, I think we have 2 different values here. So we have this, let's send it over to the decoder. Let's decode as base 64. So we decode this as base 64, we now have 2 different values again. So we have this, and then we have another value. I don't want to end up decoding this and end up finding something in my Google account that's not supposed to be here. I don't know what they're sharing and what they're not sharing, so I'm going to turn this off for 1 second. Decode is base 64. No, nothing special in there. Let me try the other one, and then I'll show everybody. No, okay. Just making sure. Yeah, we just got a bunch of binary coming from that, 2 completely different ones. So it's certainly possible that some of those could be the identifiers, or it's just the one on the end. Let's see. Let's see if we can change this just to like a 5. that makes any sense. Okay, doesn't like that. Let's see if, what about this delimiter? Can I add, how could I do this? Okay, doesn't like that. So the value must be being pulled from here. Let's see if I can find any other reference of this identifier. And I want it to be in a response. Nice. I think this is going to be what I'm looking for. Oh, it just comes with a set cookie. Damn. That's all we got. Anything in the request body? We send it? No, so this is just coming with cookie. All right, so this is where the user is being identified. By the way, the fact that I'm showing this here, if anybody really wants to, you can come in and change my handle. That'd be really funny. All right, so we'll just copy this over for right now. Yeah. Okay. Bring you over here. So they're not validating integrity on this. If they were validating integrity, we'd probably see something, unless this is that sequence is the signature. It's possible that this is a signature that's validating integrity. I don't know. But I don't think so. I think those are just different data stores that are in there, and we could potentially control them, but it looks like they're validating them. So IDOR doesn't look like it's going to be too easy on this, and that is pretty common for an application like this. IDORs are much more prevalent in web application vulnerabilities, or I mean not web application, in APIs, sorry. So typically I'll look for IDORs and APIs. By the way, a little trick of mine, if you want to find hidden APIs that a lot of people aren't testing on, let's say Discord, for example. Discord's a great one. Get their desktop application. If it has a desktop application, Glassdoor is another one that I've done this for, or not Glassdoor, Upwork has a program on Bugcrowd that I've done this for, but download the desktop application on a Windows virtual machine and then route the entire Windows virtual machine, all that traffic in a proxy through Burp, and then you'll be able to see a bunch of endpoints that are just for the desktop application. It's a great little trick to find some stuff that a lot of people aren't testing on. But anyway, moving on. Are there multiple user roles? I mean, I haven't seen one. You can imagine that there's an admin. I don't see how there would not be an admin role to be able to come in and manipulate these definitions. So I'm just going to put user admin, but admin is assumed because I don't know if it's there. Is there an API? I don't think there's a formal API. Let's come and take a look though. Oh, there is. And it's got a V0 still is what it's using. Now it doesn't look like there's a ton of stuff there. Is there an API within the actual page? At least not a formal one. What is this? Oh, that's my.urban dictionary, and then, let me see here. Oh yeah, that one. We think we have an XXE right there. I'm not going to dig into it on stream. Okay, so I mean we have endpoints. These are essentially APIs, but the formal API is at this subdomain. So we'll go api.urbandictionary.com. That's fine right there. Is there a content management system, a CMS? I think the answer to that is no. I haven't seen any mention of Laravel or anything. I guess, I mean, I don't think you can consider React CMS. So I don't think that's what's going on here. If so, it's pretty obfuscated. No. Is there a content security policy? Great thing to take a look at. This is going to tell us what we can do if we can get things like cross-site scripting or different client-side vulns. How much can we build the impact on? So typically you can see that through just any of the requests, and we'd have to look on every different subdomain because they're probably all going to be configured differently. So let's just see here. And I don't think I've seen one. So the content security policy is going to be set through the headers. I have not seen any mention of a content security policy. Just see what happens when I search security in scope only. Oh, okay, so there's a, oh, that's in the Shopify. Okay, so there's a very simple content security policy on their shop itself. Otherwise, I do not see anyone there. And since we're not focusing on the shop, we're not going to go ahead and list that. So no. And that's, put a couple stars right there because that's a big deal. That's a big, big deal. This gives us a lot of opportunities here to import full scripts and be able to do some wild stuff with cross-site scripting. Is CORS implemented? I don't think we have any CORS implementation. Very easy to search for that. We'll just look in scope again. That's done by the headers, and we can just search for access control because the two headers we're going to be looking for are access control, allow origin, and there we go. So we do have some CORS implementations for the API, which is correct. That's what we would typically see. Now the question is, do we have access control allow credentials? We do for some. Access control allowed credentials is required for us to get anything. The main thing that we'd be looking at here is, can we add an origin header to bypass this? So, come over here. Here's our origin. I would do dot. Let's go somewhere where I can type. So very simple to test for CORS misconfigurations.evil.com. I'm not going to send this because I don't know if it's vulnerable or not, and I don't want to disclose any vulnerability I'm not allowed to, but that's exactly how you would test it on any of them. The most common misconfiguration in a CORS implementation is that, so basically the way that CORS works is, or when you're configuring it, you set up an origin that says this origin is allowed to access this. So if you have multiple different domains that you want to be able to access it, you can't set a list. You can't just do 2 or 3 of them. So you really only have a couple options. You also can't do something like this. You can do a wildcard, but you can't do star.urban dictionary in every subdomain. I don't know why this is not part of the naming scheme. It really should be, but you can. So your main option here is to come over and you're either going to put one domain, or you can just start out and that'll allow anything to come through, at which point typically you're going to be looking for them to have credentials as part of that. So what a lot of developers will do as a way to try to make this secure, try to make sure that only valid origins are accepted, is they will have some type of logic in, say, the application load balancer or some type of an API gateway that's accepting the request that will dynamically take the values of the origin header and append it before that request is sent on as part of this. So what you'll see is, .evil.com here will be reflected because it's taken your origin header and it's just reflecting it back and using that to validate. Very, very common misconfiguration. Now, not as much nowadays. James Kettle at Portswigger did an amazing presentation back in 2017 on this and said, hey, this is kind of the new, it was I think it was like the sea surf is what he compared it to the day or something like that, but nobody had really dialed into it. Now most people are aware of this and fix it, but it's still something that we'll be taking a look at. Anyway, I digress. So CORS is implemented, yes, on the API. Some allow creds. Is CAPTCHA used? I have not seen anywhere that CAPTCHA is used. Maybe creating a definition. Do they have a CAPTCHA check there? I don't think so. I don't know if I actually did this or not, too. No CAPTCHA. Oh, this is interesting too. Okay, so there's definitely an admin. So let's come back up to our users. Okay, all right, this gives us more information on it. There has to be an admin because the admin, somebody is reviewing these. It's not just a regular user account that's viewing it. So there must be some type of additional portal or somewhere where the admin can log in and they can see all of them and they can go through and review them. So that gives us a great opportunity to do blind cross-site scripting. We can try and deliver a bunch of cross-site scripting payloads as these definitions, and then hopefully when the admin loads it up, that cross-site scripting will fire. So if we have that cross-site scripting, say do a fetch to a webhook that we control, then we'll be able to see when that fired, and then we'll be able to reach out and give them a bounty, or tell them that we have a vulnerability there. So I'm going to put admin and reviews definitions. Again, from an attacker perspective, that's really, really valuable. If you've done web CTFs, that's something I see all the time, where you have some type of review process and you've got to get a cross-site scripting on the admin, and then from there you'll change their password or have them do something they didn't intend to do. What might be fun is have them approve a definition that they didn't want to approve. You know, have them write something in there to be like, something they wouldn't want to have on the site, and then the JavaScript automatically verifies it. You'd have to have access to the page to be able to know what that button is that approves it, but if you could do that, that'd be a really fun way to show impact. All right, I do not believe that WebSockets are used. And finally, is the source code publicly available? I don't believe so. Let's go Urban Dictionary to GitHub, I guess. Okay, well, oh, is it? I mean, there's no PHP here, but there's a little, I don't even know what that is. So, a little bit, definitely not the main applications. Okay. Go ahead and save that. All right, I'm just going to run and hit the head real quick. I'll be back in 1 minute, and then we'll move down and start looking at the server itself. We'll run some port scans to see what else is open, make sure that we're targeting the correct server. And then from there, we start looking at individual endpoints, start finding chaining bugs. So I will be back in just a minute. Just need to, been drinking a lot of coffee. So I'll be right back. All right, make sure I switch to the correct screen there. J Money, I again appreciate the help there. Okay, so now we're gonna come back and we're gonna look at the server itself. Got a pretty good idea of what's going on in the application, got a good idea. There's really only two objects that we're gonna be targeting. There's a user object and a definition object, OAuth, authentication, so we got a lot of opportunities to try and bypass that, especially if we can get some chaining bugs. But I have a really good idea at this point of some strategies that I can use to start going after that. So let's see what we can find on the server itself. Hopefully it has some hidden web vulnerabilities, or hidden web servers that are on there. Maybe it has some FTP, SFTP servers, something else that we can potentially gather information. So the first one is what ports are open. So the easiest way to do that, I'm gonna come over and grab my, where'd you go? Grab my Kali machine here, and then we can just do a simple nmap scan against the server in order to find the server itself, so we know it's urbandictionary.com, we're just going to do a dig command on it. We'll run that. So the dig command gives us our IP of the server here. Let's go ahead and copy that out. Now let's do a whois real quick. You can see that I've already made sure that all this works. And the whois is pointing us to a Google IP in Google Cloud, and that's what we thought before. We had seen that we thought this was in Google Cloud. So you know, definitely enough to go on here to think that this is one of their servers, although we need to keep in mind that because it's in Google Cloud, or if it's in AWS or Azure, any other cloud service, it's very possible that that's doing multiple, or it's hosting multiple different applications, or doing multiple different things, which we're going to look at in a minute. But just keep that in mind. If you always want to check the ASN, you always want to make sure that what you're testing is in scope. But we can absolutely do a quick mmap scan here to see what other ports are open. So let's get that started. And in the meantime, because that'll take a little bit, we'll go ahead and go through. Services, same thing, we're going to have to run that. It is hosted in the cloud, and Google's cloud right there. Now, because this is hosted in the cloud, the next question, or I mean, it doesn't have to be in the cloud, but this is more common. I want to see, is it doing virtual hosting? Are there multiple apps? And the way we can test that, and we'll do that while the mmap scan is running, is we can come back over to Burp, and we are going to fuzz the host header. And we're going to see if we can find any other applications, because what I'm hoping is happening is there's what's called an application load balancer, or some type of a load balancer on the front end here that accepts all of these requests, and then it checks the host header, and based on the host header, that is the application that it routes the request to. So there may be Urban Dictionary here, API.Urban Dictionary, but maybe there's admin.Urban Dictionary as a subdomain. Instead of having that admin panel that I was talking about before where they approve the definitions, instead of having that as part of the main app, maybe it's a subdomain in a completely different app. And then if I come in here and do admin, and this will give us a lot of insight into how it handles this. There we go. We have a 404. So there is some type of virtual hosting going on here. Let's see what is coming back in this. Well, does this look like? Yeah. So again, this should be coming from Google. So I have some. Oh, okay. That's just reflecting there. There's just a payload that I didn't realize was part of that. That's fine. Okay, so let's do this. Let's grab the main request to the server. Actually, anything like this is fine. Send it to intruder. Clear these out. Now we're going to fuzz this here, and we'll start by, actually let's start by just doing this. Let's add this here. And now make sure, this is a new update, I've mentioned this before in a couple strings, make sure that you unselect this update host header to match the target, and then we'll get a warning before the scan runs, just to or let us know that we're testing outside of the host header, but that should be fine. All we're doing is enumerating. We're not trying to mess with anything, we're not trying to break anything, we're just doing a basic GET request with different subdomains. So let's go ahead and load up some payloads, and the first one here, we'll go back, and isn't Discovery? Oh, Discovery, we'll go to DNS. Okay, and then let's do a short one here. So here's a short list of different subdomains, and I want to be nice to this load balancer. I don't want to hammer it, so I'm going to do a throttled resource pool that only has, let's say, I was doing 10. Let's just say 4 concurrent requests, and we'll do an automatic back off as well. Because again, I don't want to break anything on a Saturday morning for their poor team. Okay, here's the warning. We hit ignore, and we'll let these go through. And as always with the intruder, we're looking for variations. Interesting that we're not getting the 404 that we were getting before. Maybe that was a 404 anyway. Or maybe. Let me test something real quick. Pull this off. Oh, I wonder if we're getting the 404. Okay, let's just see this. Okay, all right. I thought I may have found something that I didn't want to call too much attention to, but I did not. Okay, so this right here, we're seeing different things from what we were seeing before. The reason for that is we started here was the API. So this is actually, it appears, a completely different application. And I bet we can find that if we just copy this, just a straight copy. We've also got some results here. So first of all, I want to do dig. We should see a different IP here. Yeah, and we do. Okay, so that's the reason that we were seeing some different stuff. Also, our scan on the first server that we were looking at finished, and we have 443 and 80. So that's HTTP, HTTPS. So I'm not seeing anything that makes me think that there's anything special on there. We can do the same thing for this. Now let's go back and test the other one. So this server does appear to have some virtual hosting going on. We don't know if the My Urban Dictionary subdomain has any, but we'll just go to the www right there. Send that. Let's get rid of the page. Now let's try. Okay, so the main one doesn't seem like it mines. Let's try the My. I wonder if the My is on the same server as the API, and that would be why it has the. It looks like it. Yeah. Okay. So the My. Okay. So this is an example of virtual hosting. So you can see here, if we make this request to the API.UrbanDictionary, we get this 404 error. That's the exact same thing that we would get if we sent it to this. You see there, 404 error because it doesn't exist. Now, if I come over and change this to my.UrbanDictionary, now all of a sudden we have a working route. That tells me that exactly what I said is happening. And this is probably going to be a better target. It looks like this is a completely different tech stack. I don't even think this is a PHP application. So I think testing on the My Urban Dictionary and the API Urban Dictionary and those different subdomains is going to be completely different than the main Urban Dictionary. They're completely different applications built in completely different ways. So with that in mind, now we're going to send this to Intruder because our other one's not going to work. So we started with that. And on the back end of this in Burp is the IP. So even though we were changing this host header, it's all still going to the same IP. So let's come into Intruder here. Same thing we did before. We're going to clear this out. We're going to add it here. And now we're going to come to, and I just want it to be, we don't want to have a specific endpoint. We want to assume that we can make a request to anything there. Once again, payloads, we'll do 500, resource pool, we'll do the throttle resource pool. Let me make sure the other one's oh, it's a search. Okay, so the other one's already gone. All right, start the attack here. Oh, and as you can see, so we're getting nothing with 302s. We're not having any impact here. The reason for that is I forgot to do what I just said that we need to do. I forgot to uncheck this. So if you don't uncheck that, then it's just going to keep that host header for every request. And you might think that there's no virtual hosting when there actually is. So make sure you see this pop up. If you don't see this pop up, something is wrong. We hit ignore. Now we have our control, which is the 302, and our 404 for the rest of them. And okay, so dub gives us a redirect, and that's being appended there. Interesting. So this, going back to our sheet here, this makes me think that there's a possibility for an open redirect, which is what we're getting pretty close to. So I'm just going to copy this. What's the best? I think I just got to copy the raw request response. That's the only way that I can really do it. No, that's not going to be enough information in the future. All right, so let's put this, I just got to write this out. Let's copy the URL. That should be fine. Copy URL. Okay, changing the host header to I think that's enough for me for right now. Remember that. Yeah. So main server, no. API server, yes. So let's see if we can find anything else that's hidden. I don't think there was. All right, so what I would do from there, and I'm not going to do it on the stream here, this is probably something I'll run later, but I would just expand this out. So I did a very small word list there. We'd probably come over and do the top 50,000. You can see we have some other subdomains that are there, but I'm going to do a lot of fuzzing on this to see if I can find any hidden servers. Hopefully, again, there's an admin panel that they don't want us to access. Yeah, that can be very, very good. All right. I think that's helpful for now on that one. Let's move back over to our stuff. I don't think we've really been able to figure out much about the server itself, though, and if something's hosted in the cloud, I don't typically target the server, at least not targeting the server itself. I'll target the server through a command injection, which we already have some opportunity. So I think I'm good there. I'm not really too interested in 5 or 6 because it's in the cloud. The cloud makes it more interesting for this virtual hosting. But yeah. All right, so we would move on from there to each individual page. And I'll tell you what, let's do this. Let's come over to the repeater, and we found several ones here. So let's go through each one of these and let's see if we can expand this a little bit. And that's probably where I'm going to call it for the day. So get rid of that just so we can see it a little better. So this first endpoint here is this right? I must have changed. Let's go back to the initial one. Is the add endpoint? I'll tell you what, let's not worry about that. Let's look through here and just find ones that look interesting. Because this add, why would that be coming? That shouldn't be a GET request. Now this looks like another place where you can add one that has a post request in it. Sorry, I know it's kind of hard to see. Let's come in here. So yeah, this is actually adding the word. Man, I still want to come back and test this for prototype pollution. I still haven't had a chance to do that. So as we're going through this, maybe this is a better way to explain it instead of going through each one. So asking these questions for each page, you're trying to figure out which pages are, or which endpoints are good targets to continue to dig into. You're also looking for maybe hidden parameters, hidden request methods, etc. So let's take this one. Let's find one that's a GET request first. So yeah, I mean, this one is just strange. Go to the repeater. I want to see what actually comes up here. The inspector. All right, so GET request to here just pulls the page. So then why do we have a parameter here? Did this do anything? I don't remember when we added this. See if that makes a difference. I'm wondering if it'll reflect that in here. It does. Okay, so here is a parameter that we didn't know had an input. It's automatically taking that and putting it in there. So that's a great example of a reflected input. If we go back down to our chaining bugs here, here's our reflected input. And you can see what I would do from here. So I'd say, okay, can I do an HTML injection? I'd do, let's see, bold. And send that. Does that work? And then, okay, let's say it did. Well, then let's come over here and put, you know, script tags. Obviously, this would be the most simple cross-site scripting ever, but, you know, maybe we can come over and do alert, whatever, you know. By the way, using alert to validate cross-site scripting, but that's another story. Server-side template injection as well. Maybe if we believe that this is being rendered through a PHP templating engine, we would need to look up which one it is. In fact, let's actually do that real quick, just so you can see. So if I don't believe that this is using a templating engine, but if I did think it was, I would come over here to book.hacktricks. I would slide down to the web vulnerabilities, beyond reports, and we would look for server-side template injection. The page would hopefully load. And then on the right-hand side here, we can come through and find anyone for PHP, if there is anyone. And yeah, again, here we go. So Twig is the one that I've seen most common. What was the other one? Smartly? Do they have the same? Looks like Smartly's a little different. So I'm looking for these payloads to test. So Twig has the really basic one. If you send it to 7 times 7, we're hoping that it'll output as a 49. So we can copy this. Come over here. So I would just put this in here. And if I send this through, if this said 49, boom, I have a server-side template injection and I can start to do all types of fun stuff. If it's using Smartly, so what I would also do if this did not work is come through and append this here and send it, and if I get a Smartly, you know, 4.3.2 or something like that, then that tells me that that's vulnerable as well. So that would be the last test that I would do there. Again, I really don't believe that that's what's happening. I also don't want to do a ton of these tests because I don't want to disclose a vulnerability, but that's exactly what I recommend you do if you want to go test. So there's one example of reflected input. And now, because we know that we want to test this, we can come back to this. So let's just do this exercise through here. And typically what I'll do is I'll leave that at the top, and then I'll just list these out. And obviously we can see that's a get, but I'll get right there. Okay, so what part of CRUD is this endpoint doing? This is doing read, right? This is going to be reading, and I don't even know if it's doing that. I don't think this is actually doing, this call itself is actually doing anything in the database. It's just reflecting the value that's coming up here. I don't see anything from the database. So we actually don't have anything yet. But the question is, can we manipulate this to pull something from the database? So the first question, can we change the verb? And I think we can. I think this endpoint is set up to do multiple things. And that's especially interesting with PHP, which I talked about last week. So let's see. What happens when we actually submit it? I know we did that earlier. What's the endpoint? What the endpoint is that does that? Did it go through the API? Ah, okay. So this must send a request to the API. If we view the page source, go to the form. /add/submit. Strange that the action here doesn't point to the different domain. I don't know why that is. Maybe the JavaScript is handling that, and that's how it works. But it's going to this different server. It's going to the My Urban Dictionary. So this is the one that's actually manipulating the database. I don't know if any requests to this Urban Dictionary endpoint, I don't know if this does anything. Well, I mean, we got the XML stuff, but this looks like it's mostly for reading, and then this API and everything does the rest of the stuff. So well, let's just see. Let's go back here to the add, and let's see how it handles it. So we'll change this to a post request, change request method, and okay, it's not found, which is strange in PHP. Because PHP, you don't actually set the, you don't set it to say you only accept a request type unless it's using some type of framework. Typically, if it's just a PHP application, like a basic one, then you will have conditionals to say, send a response if it's not what you're looking for. So it's possible that they have something there to say if the request is a post, send a 404, otherwise let it go through. I don't know. This makes me think maybe they are using a framework for this one too, and we just haven't been able to pick it up. This certainly could be Laravel. Certainly could be Laravel. All right, we'll tell you what, let's do this then. Let's come back over and let's do the same thing for the APIs, because the API appears to get us much, much closer to the actual database. And that's always what we're targeting, right? Again, a web application, it just creates, reads, updates, or deletes data within a database. That's what we're trying to get to. So we send this here. Doesn't seem to have any issue adding it. Oh, well, this one's saying it's a duplicate. So what happens if I just do a put? I wonder if it would bypass anything. And we're still getting a 404. Let's change this to a get. No, we're still getting a 404. Interesting. So I'm going to make a note up here and just put the application looks like it allow listing HTTP verbs, not denying them. I don't know if that's how you spell denying, but that's fine. So again, this just tells me, are they using framework? Is there a framework? I don't know. But, okay, so that's about an hour and a half in. I think that's where I want to leave it for today. Because again, I got a lot of things I gotta do around the house and all that today. But hopefully this was helpful. Let me know how the time worked for you. I saw there's obviously a lot less people on today than there normally are, which I kind of expected. I was curious to see how doing an earlier stream would do. I do want to try and make these streams available for in a time that's available for individuals that are in different time zones. So I'm trying to not make them all like in the middle of the day in the American time zone. But I want to do whatever y'all want to see. So let me know if there's a good time that works for you. Let me know if there's anything else you want me to dig into. At this point, you can see I'm going to start looking for these chaining bucks that I have listed there, and then we'll go ahead and dig into the actual attack. So I'll probably do one more stream later in the week, Tuesday or Wednesday, to go through that, and hopefully that will get the information out there for what I do when I really start digging into testing. That's probably as close as we can get to doing real testing without risking disclosing stuff, which we may get. I've got a couple ideas for how we can do that, but anyway, other than that, again, let me know if there's anything you want to see, anything you want me to cover. I will say that I'm going to do 1 or 2 more streams in the next week, and then I'm going to put a pause on the streams for a bit. I have a really, really exciting announcement for my YouTube channel. It's going to be coming in the next couple weeks, and I've got a lot of work to do to prepare for that. I've got some recordings and stuff to do, so I'm going to have to put the Twitch streams on pause for a little bit. But I'm also going to use that time to improve the technology on the stream here too. So let me know if there's anything you want to see here. I've got to get that Discord bot set up, or I guess not bot, but whatever the mechanism is. I know somebody showed me where you can do like a exclamation mark Discord or something that will show you the link to it. So I want to get stuff like that set up. Maybe a couple other fun stuff as well. But anything you want to see, let me know. Hope it was helpful. Have a great weekend. Cheers.